right. Today, a little bit different this morning. It's not a sermon as much as it is a testimony. End of the ministry year, I want to tell some of the story of what the Lord has been doing in and through our congregation. And this doesn't just go back for a year. It goes back really almost 10 years, a little bit more than that. And I'm excited about sharing it because I have a unique perspective on things. I believe that God is writing this beautiful and unique story with our congregation, and I get to tell you all about it. And today, really, I have two goals. One, I want to bear witness to God's goodness and give glory to God for what He's doing. Kind of bring it up from the surface, perhaps, and draw your attention to it. And I want to invite each of you into the next chapter of our church's life. We're going to be doing a summer sermon series on Ecclesiastes, but this is kind of looking beyond that into the upcoming ministry year beginning in September. First picture I have today, many of you know this person. This is Debbie Smith, now Debbie Tackey. Yeah, totally. Debbie, I hired Debbie in 2014. And I knew we needed her to come to our church. I wasn't exactly sure how and what and all that kind of stuff, and I couldn't articulate it, but I'm like, she's the one. And here's what I mean by that. Today is Trinity Sunday. We celebrate and highlight the fact that God is a community. There is no part of God that's not out of community. And we are created in the image of the Lord, therefore we're remade in that image. And what Debbie brought is we knew, and I include myself in this, we knew a lot about God at the time that she came here, but I don't know that I or others really had an experience of a relationship with Him. And I'm like, that's kind of what you do. So bring that here. So God gifted us with Debbie. And John 15:5 was one of the texts that she would come back to again and again. I don't know if she has a life verse. This would be in the running for it, I suppose. I am the vine. This is Jesus speaking. You are the branches. If you abide in me and I in you, you will bear much fruit. Debbie taught me and taught many of y'all how to abide with the Lord. How to go deep with God. She had a saying that she used to say a lot is live deep instead of fast. And that really spoke to me. And through her, I didn't even know what contemplative prayer was. And it's like a whole world. And she brought that here. And it blessed us profoundly. Now, I'll give you one example from my own life. This was early in her time here. I think it was the beginning of 2015. She was leading a session retreat, and she led a group of elders through this time of, it's called gospel contemplation. Some of you have done it, where you read a story in the Gospels, and then you use your imagination, and you put yourself in the story, and you see, like, okay, how do I respond to Jesus? How do I respond to the situation? And I was like, what in the world is this? Voodoo that we're doing here. But I was like, okay, it's apparently something the church has been doing for hundreds of years. So we did it. And the passage that she had us meditate on was the Zacchaeus story from Luke 19. So the Zacchaeus story, there's this guy Zacchaeus who is a tax collector, and he meets Jesus, and his life is totally transformed. And Jesus goes to his house, they have a big party, they have a big feast, and they're celebrating, and Jesus is saying, today, this man, this tax collector, this oppressor of the people of God, is now a son of Abraham. It was a big party, and I was using my imagination, and I'm imagining myself at the party, and I noticed that I wasn't celebrating. I mean, I was there. I wasn't like a Pharisee trying to, what did Jesus say? Ha ha, got him. It was none of that, but I wasn't celebrating. And it was profoundly troubling to me. I did not sleep at all that night. I was scared to death. Because I realized in that moment that experience of being present but not really present, that wasn't just true about the Zacchaeus story. That was my life. I was there, but not there. And God used that and other experiences to wake me up out of a deep slumber. So those were the kind of gifts that God brought our congregation through her. And again, we were just kind of stumbling along. And God brought her into our path and blessed us and changed us and transformed us. And so Jesus talks about this fruit, and I could talk at length about the fruit that's come from my life of that abiding, but I think in this congregation, people that come here from other places, move here, come here from other congregations or no congregations, they're like, there's a depth here among the people. There's a beauty. There is a wonder, a rootedness in the Lord. That's palpable. You can kind of taste it. You can experience it. You can feel it. There is a richness of community life in a city that, quite frankly, can be really lonely and isolating. And if I will say high quality leadership here, with the exception of me. But the staff and our lay leadership, our vestry, just phenomenal people. When I'm not here, I'm bragging about you all the time. So it's kind of fun to get to brag about you to your faces. I can think of other things. Shelley's here. She doesn't know I'm going to say this. Soul Care Seattle. It was a dream of Shelley's for a long time, years, decades. And through the work that the Lord has done in this congregation, there was a critical mass. So now this beautiful spiritual direction retreat ministry place exists right here in the middle of a really busy city that is ambivalent at best about God. And there it is, a little oasis in the desert. We've embraced women priests. We've embraced women preachers. Both me, but particularly y'all, with this bishop process of last year, that disruption, how amazing were y'all in going through that? I mean, you were facing, a significant change in leadership here, and y'all embraced it. And that takes rootedness. And you didn't just embrace it and kind of suck it up. You embraced it with love and openness to the Spirit, and it was absolutely wonderful. The way that Eric Haddon, who's one of our vestry co-chairs, we were kind of lamenting. We're like, oh, man, we've been through so many hard things, COVID and this and that and the other thing. And so we were kind of whining. And he was like, and he kind of reframed it, and I think this is the right way of looking at it. He said, we're a church that can do hard things. And I'm like, oh, I think that's absolutely right. And all of these things are an outflow of that abiding, of that clinging to Christ, of that living, that dwelling with Him. Now, I got two metaphors today that I think about when I think about our church and what God is doing. And the first one is monastery. I believe that God is forming grace into a monastery. I don't think that's the calling of every church. I don't even think that's the calling of necessarily of a church for its entire life. But I think in this season right now, in this chapter of our life, the last 10 years, God has been forming us into a monastery. Now, monasteries have many gifts. One of them is what I want to call artisanal excellence. All right, from Trappist monks who make amazing beer. I grew up, and there was a Trappist monastery by my house, and this was in the 70s. They had like free-range chicken eggs before it was even a thing. Everybody was getting mass-produced eggs, and man, the abbey had the best eggs in the entire state. They were known for that. Monks singing, choral singing, whatever it is, monasteries do it well. The other thing is that monasteries do a great job, particularly in the Middle Ages, of welcoming the wounded. If you were a traveler in the Middle Ages, that was dangerous. That meant you left your people because things were bad, and then you had to go somewhere else. And when you got to a city, if you didn't know anybody, what are you going to do? You're low-hanging fruit for people with bad intentions. But travelers would look for the crosses on the skyline. They would look for the monasteries. Because they knew if I went there, I would be taken care of. So many gifts come from monasteries. And the heart of a monastery is the prayer lives of the monks. It's the engine that makes the whole thing run. Their intimacy with the Lord is what drives the whole thing. And I think that's why monastery is a good metaphor for us. I believe artisanal excellence is a value that we have. And by excellence, some of y'all have been on staff at megachurches or worked at megachurches. There is an oppressive excellence that's like, you screwed up. Everything's got to be perfect. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is if you want to make chocolate chip cookies, dang it, they better be good. They better be worth your time. They better be made with care, where you grind the flour in a certain way. You get the chocolate chips. You know the ones that you really want, and these are the best chocolate chips, and you get the best recipe and all that kind of stuff. That's what I'm talking about. Things that are done with a sense of craftsmanship. See, anything we do here, the music, the fonts that we use, the way children's ministry is done, the way youth ministry is done, the way preaching is done, liturgy, all those things are embrace of the visual arts here. We have many artists in our congregation. That's a fruit of being a monastic kind of church. We believe that those things matter before the eyes of the Lord. And also, we're a church that welcomes the wounded. I know a number of people who have come here and have spent the first several weeks just crying in worship. Because they're like, oh, it's a safe enough space. It's not a perfect space, but it's a safe enough community where I can let my guard down when I'm worshiping with the people of God. Sometimes the church is the most dangerous place for the people of God. But here, people are finding refuge. People are finding it to be a hospital. In the heart, I believe, of our congregation, all these things are beautiful gifts. The heart is the prayer life of our people, is our own intimacy with the Lord. That's what drives everything here. It's not about programs. We believe in programs. We love the Word of God. We have amazing teachers here, preachers, etc. But our intimacy, our fellowship with the Lord, our being invited into the Trinity and experiencing that goodness, not just knowing it, but experiencing it, to taste and see that the Lord is good, that changes everything and that drives everything here. Now, second metaphor here. When the Celtic monks felt called to start a new monastery, they would get into one of these. This is my next picture. Anybody know what this boat is called? Coracle. All right? Reepicheep. Don Treader. He had a coracle. These are beautiful. These are one-person boats. Does that look stable to you? Probably not going to stink, but you're going to get tossed around in that thing. And the thing is, when the monks, there's no rudder, there's no sail. When the monks got into one of these things, they didn't have a paddle. They just got into that thing. I'm sure they prayed some kind of liturgy with their fellow monks. And they're like, the Lord has called me to get into this boat and plant a monastery somewhere else. And they just took off, put themselves in the Lord's hands. And this was such an act of trust and worship. They're saying, all right, Lord, I want to follow you, and I'm going to surrender control. You know, being in the Coracle is great until you're actually in it. And you're like, what was I thinking? I can't steer this thing. I can't paddle it in the way that I wanted to go. But Lord, I trust that you mean good for me. C.S. Lewis put it this way. When you come to the Lord and really begin to trust him and follow him. And here's what he said. It's brilliant. Imagine yourself as a living house. God comes in to rebuild that house. At first, perhaps you can understand what he's doing. He's getting the drains right and stopping the leaks on the roof and so on. You knew that those jobs needed doing, and so you were not surprised. Like, way to go, God. You fixed some of my problems. But presently, he starts knocking the house about in a way that hurts abominably and does not seem to make any sense. What on earth is he up to? Like, what? I thought you were, Jesus, where's this abundant life stuff that you talk about? I want some more of that. And he keeps going. The explanation is that he is building quite a different house from the one you thought of. Throwing out a new wing here, putting on an extra floor there, running up towers, making courtyards. You thought you were being made into a decent little cottage. But he is building a palace. He intends to come and live in it himself. That's the glory of the vision that God has. We want the nice little cottage, and he's like, you think too small. But in order to get to where we're going, some walls are going to have to get knocked down. And this is where the Coracle starts to not be so great. So after my experience with Zacchaeus and Lord starting to wake me up again, I started praying more regularly. I started spiritual direction, and it was great until it wasn't. Next picture. This is my daughter Maggie, and this is when she was in 9th grade, and that shirt says, I prefer my puns intended. She loves a good pun. Couple months after this picture was taken, she was in 9th grade. She came out to Lynn and I as gay. Incredibly courageous sharing on her behalf. And Lynn and I were like, what? You're what? Like, not in the plan. Not in her plan either, by the way, but definitely not in our plan. We were absolutely crushed. Next picture. This is Mother Emanuel Church in Charleston, South Carolina, where I grew up. I didn't grow up at Mother Emanuel, but I grew up in Charleston. In 2015, a gunman killed 9 worshipers, African-American worshipers, in a Bible study on a Wednesday night that they had welcomed into their church. And this was after Trayvon Martin, this was after Michael Brown, and that one in particular woke me up. I was like, I began to realize, I have a problem with systemic racism. Like, I'm wrapped up in this somehow. I thought I was free from it, but I'm complicit in it. I began to discover some very painful things about myself. And then the next picture, I wound up in therapy that year. And this is a little drawing of myself I made for my therapist. Isolated, fearful, anxious, disappearing, angry. That's my self-portrait. You can imagine why I was checked out and not awake. This was me on the inside, and those things began to come to the surface. So you get into the Coracle, and you're like, dang, I want to go back to where I was before. But you can't. You can't unsee these things. And so God took me on a journey. That in turn took this church on a journey. Next slide is the Revoice staff. amazing group of people, really following them, following their leadership and their teaching, kind of modeled for me. How do you hold to a historic understanding of marriage, sexuality, and gender, and so forth, but do so in a loving posture that's free from the anxiety and the fear, but it's more open. Next slide. It's Pastor Anderson, First AME. He and I got to be friends and colleagues. And again, I began to follow his lead. How do I pursue racial justice? I don't know. I'm a middle-class white guy. That guy knows, though. Maybe he can show me how. And then the next picture. This was last week, Lynn and I on Orcas Island. Remember the anxious face? You imagine being married to that guy where everything's a threat to him? Not fun. But the Lord has begun to heal these things. The Coracle takes you and me to incredibly difficult places because we can't control it. But if you stay in the boat and Jesus is there with you in the boat, it's an incredibly fruitful voyage. What does Jeremiah 17 say? They will be like a tree planted by the river with roots that go down deep. So even in the drought, you will bear fruit. And I can testify that that's true. All right, last story I'm going to tell before I get to the invitation. So, next picture. This handsome man is also here in person today, Jason Davison. He was one of our yeah, there he is. He's in the back. Sorry, man, I outed you. He's going to slip out during communion. But Jason was one of our pastors from 2017 to 2022, so he and his family, amazing family, are here. And during the pandemic, talk about Coracle, talk about, this. How do we steer this thing? Where's this thing going? Is our church going to live? Jason had been doing ministry in the city for about 2 decades, and he knows everybody. Do you know Jason? Yeah, of course. And Jason connected several different worlds, as he does. His superpower is connection. And there were all these feeding ministries, these nonprofits, Operation Night Watch, and so forth, that during COVID couldn't feed people because they couldn't get volunteers. And then there were all these restaurants that are like, we're going to go out of business. And so Jason knew a lot of women-owned and minority-owned businesses. So what Jason said is like, what if we bring those two groups of people together? There are restaurants that need to make food for people. There are feeding ministries that are trying to feed people. And how about Grace somehow gets in the middle and we buy the food and then we deliver the food to the places that need the food. And I was like, well, that sounds great. Awesome. Let's do it. And that was the birth of Serving the City here at Grace. That idea of this place of tremendous squeeze and pressure and uncertainty, but there this amazing, beautiful fruit was born out of his leadership and out of the Lord's goodness. So get into the Coracle. It's not safe, but it is a fruitful place because Jesus is in the boat. Our biggest fear is like the disciples. Jesus, you're sleeping. Have you abandoned us? He's like, no, I'm right here. So let me conclude here. God is forming this church into a monastery and inviting each of you in your individual lives into your own coracle. I don't know what your coracle is. Where do we sense him leading us next year as a church? I want us to go back where we started. John 15:5. I am the vine, you are the branches. If you abide in me and I in you, you will bear much fruit. We want to go back to that. It's a year-long invitation to how do we abide in Jesus? How do you take the next step? How do I take the next step? How do we take that step together? We want a year-long emphasis on spiritual formation. We're going to be doing a fall preaching series on the farewell discourse, John 13 to 17, the last thing that Jesus said to his disciples before he was crucified and resurrected. And you will see so many of these threads. That's where the abide in me comes from. That's where the Trinitarian come and experience our joy and glory and so forth. We're going to be doing a year-long adult class. The youth group is going to be sort of loosely following a similar pattern as well. So Nelson showed this a couple weeks ago, and I'm going to show it again, and I have her permission. Annalyn Iflin drew this. It's also in the inside front cover of your order of worship in the reflection quotes, or page 2, somewhere in the front. This is a picture of, channeling her inner C.S. Lewis of her life as a house with different rooms. And some of those rooms Jesus has access to, and some of them he doesn't yet. My life is the same way, and your life is the same way. There are rooms that Jesus has access to. And there are other rooms that you're like, ain't nobody going in there, especially Jesus. And we just want you to become aware of that and consider, where might the Lord be saying to you, come and see. Follow me. Invite me in. Let's open that door together. Our staff and leadership is ready to walk with you. And I'll conclude with this. The heart of this congregation's life is not a leadership hierarchy. It is not a strategic plan. It is an invitation to go deeper with the Lord. That's our shtick. That's what we do here. That's what we feel called to do by the Lord. And that's a hard journey. You have to deal with your own stuff, and I got to deal with my own stuff, and I'd rather ignore it and eat really good chocolate chip cookies. But the Lord says, no, let's do this together. I want to build a palace here that we both can dwell in. Amen.